Now, normally on this channel, I review, react and predict every single individual midweek or weekend round of Championship games, but because I've been away for a fortnight, I've missed 3 rounds of Championship games, and of course I'm not going to review them all individually, especially when some of them were already a fortnight ago. So instead, I'm going to take the last few rounds of Championship games and put them all together and present you guys with 5 key takeaways from the rest of the Championship fixtures that we've had over the last 2 weeks, and look ahead to answer some really bearing questions, which is the likes of, are the top 2 already running away with automatic promotion? Are the bottom 3 also looking to be set in stone? And what sides are starting to maybe look over their shoulder, and which sides have turned a corner and might be looking up rather than down? So let's have a little review of the recent Championship games and present my 5 key takeaways from the Championship over the last couple of weeks.
As the Uruguayan curls one in. Oh, Middlesbrough take the lead!
Starting at the top and answering the question, can anyone catch Leicester and Ipswich Town? Now, not only are we witnessing one of the greatest starts in Championship history, we're witnessing 2 in the same season. Leicester City currently hold the record for the best start to a Championship season ever, winning 10 of their opening 11 games, with Ipswich Town currently holding the 3rd best record in Championship history after 11 games on 28 points. Now, I did predict at the start of the season that if Leicester got their stuff together and started well, they'd run away with this division, and that's exactly what is happening. There's an argument that Leicester still haven't got out of second gear and have plenty of gears to go into, and are nowhere near their potential best, which is absolutely terrifying for the rest of the league. It has to be said, though, this is the minimum requirement, I would say, for Leicester, given the quality of squad that they still have at this level, and so far they have pretty much fulfilled them expectations and are looking to be delivering a runaway run at the top of the Championship and already look nailed on to get automatic promotion. An equally impressive, or maybe even more so impressive feat is Ipswich Town, who, let's not forget, are a newly promoted side and have picked up 28 points from their opening 11 games and themselves look like they've got a real chance of back-to-back promotions. Now, it is worth mentioning, and this is a stat that the king of Championship content, Benjamin Bloom, did gather in a recent video, so I'm not going to take credit for this, I'm just going to reference it. But he basically made some cool calculations and come to the conclusion that even if Leicester and Ipswich drop down to the form of the current mid-table teams in the Championship, which is just over 1 point per game, they would still be on track to finishing somewhere in and around the playoffs. And if they maintained form that was even equivalent to the top 8 or top 6, they would be pretty much guaranteed to stay where they were and pick up automatic promotion, which is insane. Now, you have to expect realistically that neither side will keep this level of form up for the entirety of the season, but even with a minor drop-off at this rate, they still look pretty nailed on for automatic promotion. So it is an incredible start by both of these sides, and it's going to be intriguing to see if both can maintain it, which leads me onto my second takeaway, which is the question of who on earth could possibly catch them. Now, it won't surprise your average Championship viewer to see that we are once again in for an exciting playoff race with multiple teams in the mix. In fact, heading into the October international break, there are only 6 points separating Preston North End in 3rd and Boro down in 16th. That's 6 points separating sides who are 13 positions apart. And if you look at the form of a lot of the sides outside of the top 2, there isn't really one side that I think Leicester or Ipswich would look at and potentially be that worried about. Preston have lost 3 in a row. You look at Sunderland, they've lost 2 in their last 5. Even Leeds have only won 3 of the last 5 with a defeat and a draw in there. Birmingham, despite having back-to-back wins, had gone winless in a couple of the games previous, with Norwich going off the boil as well, winning only 1 of the last 5. Cardiff haven't won in any of their last 2, with Hull only picking 1 win in their last 5. And despite Southampton possibly turning a corner, They've only won 2 of their last 5 games as well. You could go on and go on and go on down the league table, picking out the inconsistent form of each and every side. Now, if I was to pick one team who I think could potentially challenge, and there is only one team for me at the moment, I would say it's Leeds United. I feel like they have got the quality and the manager to potentially go on a run that would maybe start to worry the nerves of the top 2. But even then, it would have to be a miraculous run at this rate to catch Ipswich and Leicester, and they'd probably need a helping hand from one of the top 2 as well. So it is looking very nailed on for the top 2, and I wouldn't say there's too many outstanding candidates who look like they could potentially catch them. However, a very interesting fact is that there are only 2 sides outside of the top 2 who have gone unbeaten in their last 5 league games, and that leads me on to an incredible turnaround for Swansea City and the Boro. Now, I'm not sure if this is a sign of the inconsistency with the teams behind the top 2, or it's a remarkable bit of praise for both Swansea and Middlesbrough. But yes, other than the top 2, only 2 of the teams have maintained that kind of level of form over the last 5 games, and that was the 2 sides who looked like they were in real trouble only a few weeks ago. Looking at the bottom 5 or 6, it was completely arguable that Swansea and Boro were the 2 who really shouldn't have been there, and that Michael Duff and Michael Carrick equally were under severe pressure, and if results would have continued for both, they might have both faced the sack. And I think it's safe to say Michael Carrick maybe had a little bit more credit in the bank, but Michael Duff was well and truly on the brink, especially after losing to Cardiff, and that's what makes the turnaround for Swansea even more impressive. They've won their last 4 in a row, got themselves up to 12th in the league, and maybe now people are starting to change their opinion of Michael Duff at Swansea. It's worth noting that his Barnsley side in League One last season were slow starters, but once they got going, they were pretty unstoppable. So if there was a similar trend to happen at Swansea, then who knows where Michael Duff might get this team in the end. As for Boro, of course, my beloved side, it was a little bit different because the data was suggesting that Boro were actually creating a lot of chances and weren't actually giving up a lot at the other end. It was individual errors, freak goals from the opposition and own goals as well that kind of contributed to Boro falling on the end of many tight games. It seems like that's kind of averaged itself out now, and with Boro beginning to get clean sheets and share the goals out going forward, results have quickly turned, with Boro also winning 4 league games in a row, beating the likes of Southampton, Cardiff, Watford and Sunderland in the Teeswear derby. Now the question is, can both Swansea and Boro maintain this impressive form after they get back from the international break? Because as we've seen, with the gap between them and the playoffs not being that big, it won't take many other wins to see both of them knocking on the playoff door. And talking of managerial sackings, there have been 2 over the last few weeks. One incredibly justified and the other not so much. So of course, the first managerial casualty, if you don't want to count Neil Warnock leaving Huddersfield, was Isco Munoz at Sheffield Wednesday. And this for me was, I'd say, justified. I'm not going to blame Isco completely. I feel like Sheffield Wednesday are a complete basket case of a club at the moment, and Chansiri is making himself look more of an idiot and a fool as the weeks go by with some of the absolute lunatic statements that he keeps putting out, attacking the fans, accusing them of not being grateful enough of everything he does for the club, saying that he's going to stop putting money in. It really is playing God with the club and the staff and the people who work there and are living there and need jobs there. It's just not very good, respectable behaviour and makes Chansiri look like a bit of a big baby. So you can't put the blame completely on Isco. Of course, they had a poor summer recruitment, but it's still a decent enough squad at Sheffield Wednesday, and I think even though lots was going on off the pitch, which surely won't have helped things, Isco, I wouldn't say was inspiring himself in the dugout either, was looking like a beaten man in press conferences, and there just wasn't a sign that this Sheffield Wednesday side were even remotely competitive in the majority of their games. But I still do worry for Sheffield Wednesday that they simply just do not have enough to get themselves out of the trouble that they're in. They're already 7 points adrift, which is a huge gap when you're at the bottom of the league, and still winless after 11 games. So I think it would be a miraculous great escape for Sheffield Wednesday at this early stage, and it's going to be a ginormous job for whichever manager comes in. As for the other managerial change, we had John Eustace getting sacked and being replaced by Wayne Rooney at Birmingham City. You know, I'm not going to go into this too deeply because this really is a video in itself, but this is a managerial change that I feel like is the most unnecessary of risks you could possibly take. After years of instability and, well, quite frankly, trauma off the pitch, Birmingham City was seemingly on the up, seemingly looking stable, and were on an uphill trajectory going forward with John Eustace once again proving that he was a quality manager. He dragged the best that he could get out of the Birmingham side last season amidst all of everything that was happening off the pitch, and got them safe and clear of relegation quite comfortably in the end, and had guided them to where they currently are, which is in the playoffs. So to get rid of him for Wayne Rooney is a very, very strange decision for me. I personally don't rate Wayne Rooney as a coach. He certainly isn't any better than John Eustace, and it of course draws massive parallels to when Birmingham did something similar, sacking Gary Rowett when they were just outside the playoffs all them years ago, replacing them with a more exotic name for a more exotic style in Gianfranco Zola, in a change that almost got them relegated. Now, I don't think Rooney will quite have that much of a negative impact, but I can't see him improving on what John Eustace has done, and it's not like Rooney is coming in where the bar is incredibly low and a manager has just been sacked because Birmingham were playing terribly. He's actually entered the job where the bar is pretty darn high, and he's got to pretty much match that or beat it to, I think, stay on the good side of the Birmingham fans. If he doesn't maintain the form that John Eustace had them playing and they only start sliding down the league, then of course his managerial appointment is only going to be questioned. So there is huge pressure on Wayne Rooney to maintain the level of performance that was already at Birmingham City. So for me, this is a completely unnecessary risk. It's incredibly harsh on John Eustace, and it could be a sign of the grass isn't always greener on the other side for Birmingham City if they start to slowly drift towards mid-table and, dare I say, lower. The owners could possibly have just provided an absolute masterstroke, or could end the season looking really, really stupid. And my final point is on the bottom three, and are they currently set in stone? Now, it is worth mentioning, and I'm not going to blow my own trumpet too much, but the top two I did predict following the closure of the transfer window is currently Leicester and Ipswich, and the bottom three are as I predicted as well, being QPR, Rotherham and Sheffield Wednesday. And you'd have to say, other than them three sides, I don't see anyone else who really looks as poor and looks as potentially in trouble like the bottom three do. I think, as I've mentioned, Sheffield Wednesday look like they're in big trouble and already have a huge gap to try and climb and close to get themselves out of trouble. And as I mentioned earlier with Matt Taylor and Rotherham, I don't think that squad has quite got the quality to get themselves out of the trouble that they're in. I think maybe QPR are the one you could make an argument for. If they do make the change in manager, that might claw them away from the drop zone. But above them, Huddersfield were the only side that I thought potentially, with the poor squad that they do have, could be in a bit of trouble to drop into the bottom three. But I still just feel like it would be too much of an absolute drop-off and disaster for the likes of Stoke and Watford to drop in there. Plymouth maybe have an outside chance of dropping in there. They've suffered some really poor form of late, which might start to raise the alarm down at home park. But for me, only Huddersfield potentially could end up in a bit of a relegation scrap. But who knows what might happen towards the bottom end of the Championship. Of the bottom 8 sides currently, from Blackburn downwards, the bottom 8 only have 3 wins between them in the last 5, so it doesn't look like many of them are going to be moving anywhere anytime soon, especially the bottom 3. So out of them 3, which of them do you feel like is most likely to steer clear of relegation, if any of them, or are the bottom 3 set in stone to drop down to League One? So guys, there are my thoughts on the Championship over the last few weeks. Of course, once we get back from the international break, I will continue with my usual routine of predicting every Championship fixture as we head into that round of games, as well as recapping the weekend's results once we have had them. But other than that, do let me know your thoughts on your team in the comment section below. Comment below on my thoughts as well as dropping a like on this video and subscribing for much more Championship content to come. But until next time, guys, do take care. A big thank you for watching. See you all next time.